Mickey, it feels like playing through mid is of even higher value than it was in Spring, because Spring was all about top laners teleporting bot, teleport dives with Nautilus and other tanks. It wasn't really about mid lane being the anchor of teams like we know it has been over multiple metas. Now, with there being equally interesting neutral objectives on the top and bottom side of the map, getting Mickey ahead might have even more purchase than it did in Spring.
Well, so far, very mid-focused already in the ban phase, as we've got the LeBlanc and the Syndra taken away. Varus thrown in there for good measure. Of course, we did see their last series. Teddy playing 66% of his games on that champion.
But if BDD draws respect bans on Zed, does Mickey draw them as well? It's going to be a fun thing to track now. Will he blind pick them early? Maybe not. There were a lot of scenarios where I was waiting for the Mickey Assassin and he went for kind of the utility carry instead, which frustrated me, but maybe it was what the team needed at the time. He'll probably be looking over to some of the champions BDD's been allowed to pick and being a bit envious, so I'm very interested to see exactly how much latitude he takes in this draft. Cassidy, another pick that he was very well known for, though he's seen already multiple times today.
Yeah.
Both utility AD carries banned is interesting to see.
Yeah, of course, and one on each side as well, so answering bans coming in just to make sure that we are going to be seeing something like the Twitches, something like the Caitlyn's, as Zach is going to be banned on blue side.
So Snowflower's most famous pick is the Thresh, and for Key it's not Thresh, it's of course the Bard that he made his name on in the international scene, but his Thresh is up there as well. And I know that ROX Tigers want to run Kalista Thresh. I feel like that is going to be a big... So Thresh first pick could certainly come through here, unless the Lee Sin needs to be first pick to get it off the board, because it feels like Lee Sin is that final of the triangle that was kind of talked about by Cuz in our interview. But Thresh and Kalista will be very high priority in this draft.
Well, looks like the Thresh is going to win out. You could see Tigers were thinking about that one, though, and that trinity of junglers that you mentioned is certainly something that needs to be taken into consideration. Potentially not, though, as Jace was seeing a lot of bans, and Linderung is going to lock that one away. Ixu being denied the Jace is incredibly important.
It's a lot of respect also, taking it away from Ixu, like you mentioned. It is a flex pick for the Tigers. Mickey has played at mid lane on many an occasion. It looks like they will lose out on the Thresh. It could be a Thresh Lee Sin draft here for Jin Air. That would be a lot of power. Does default to Lee Sin whenever it's open. So I think the Lee Sin part will certainly come in. Thresh is going to be the interesting one. It's heavily expected because it's Snowflower, who, if you looked at the games Anarchy won in summer of 2015, it was Mickey on an Assassin and Snowflower leaving lane and chucking a Lantern, like we've seen multiple supports already this season do. They won't look at it in the first round, though, and just take Caitlyn as a very early pick.
Yeah, of course, safe pickup, but we know what ROX Tigers want to be doing.
Yep.
They
Thresh
want
Kalista.
that Thresh Kalista if they can get it. So it seems like Jin Air maybe just not quite on the 8 ball.
I mean, it doesn't take a lot of research to open up op.gg, find this Sangyun guy and see 400,000 Kalista games.
Yeah.
So
400,000 is a heck of a lot.
I know, he's been solo queuing a lot.
He should have been on the news. Like, man plays more video games than there is time.
But will he move away from that Kalista?
Could be considered. No,
I don't think he will.
I hope not.
Or? He's showing us a lot of stuff here. You can see Sangyun's having a lovely time on the screen. He's like, oh, this stuff's great.
Oh, it's going to be the
Twitch. Interesting. So the Thresh part was correct, but they will go for Twitch. So we saw the Twitch versus Caitlyn matchup in the previous game. Can just go for Doran's Shield and BK. What does that say about the Kalista? Maybe that's just going to have to be a trick up his sleeve, doing a bit of Twisted Fate, playing with those wild cards, and having it for later.
Yeah. Don't want to show your hand too early, Papa Smithy. It is a long season.
And a lot of
first time tonight.
Yeah, a lot of melee supports to answer the Thresh. When you see Thresh, you're happy to go Braum or Tahm Kench, kind of whichever one you prefer. Braum does give them one line of defense against the accelerated shock blast, so...
Yeah, concussive blow is also pretty easy to proc when you've got a Caitlyn there who can shoot from a million miles away.
Fair point.
Like the combination. Is Rengar going to be the first ban?
And seeing a Rengar ban, Sungwon was a noted Rengar player, but Rengar has been passed up multiple times. I believe it's our first Rengar ban of the season. We've had no Rengar picks, so
yeah,
it was like Sungwon kind of inviting some of his old picks back into the meta, even if they're a bit decrepit now, as Rengar kind of feels after everything changing.
Yeah, we saw Nidalee actually banned before Rengar as far as the jungle pool was concerned.
It's a new season, Atlas.
It most certainly is, and it's an exciting one as well. As Karma is going to be banned as a bit of a throwback. Didn't see too much from the old Karma in the last series, but still still needs to be respected with them shields. Lulu being overlooked as well for a long time, but we've got both of our supports locked in. To be a mid lane pick if it is actually going to be considered. And is Ivern going to leave as well?
And so the theory behind banning the Karma here, as you know, it would have been a mid lane Karma ban, is that you're against Mickey. So if you're going to go for a safe blind pick, Karma is one of the few that kind of exists. Even with last pick, they may be wanting to get Ixu a favorable matchup, and thus taking Karma as the first pick on red side after the ban phase would make some sense because they could just neutralize mid lane, and it gives a lot of utility for the Caitlyn going that Ardent Sensor and Athene's build. And I'm banned in the second round now.
Yeah, going to fall all the way through the draft, honestly, until the very end.
Even though it's kind of seen as a good matchup for the Jace into Cannon, just banning Cannon on respective power level, and that will be the Galio flex pick there. It's actually something Mickey's been preparing in mid lane quite a bit in his recent match history.
Saw Faker play it. Unfortunately, not get a win, but still was very, very strong. Kuro doing the same thing when we saw him last, I believe.
Kuro wasn't even building any sort of damage. He was going full tank.
He was so difficult
when you
to
don't
kill.
build Abyssal Scepter on a Galio, when it feels like it's the item tailor-made for Galio, it lets you know that you're going pretty damn tanky.
Yep. Well, Olaf is going to be the jungler of choice from Songjuan. Now Key thinking about what he wants to grab for Mickey there in the mid lane, unless he grabs Linderong something for the top side of the map. But Jace doesn't feel assassiny enough.
How safe are we looking for Mickey? Could just be the Orianna, and Olaf is one of the best ball carriers for a Shockwave. Can also just put the ball onto the Twitch and BK, so pretty Sangyun focused draft here. They are going to be looking for the Twitch to really do the heavy lifting. Orianna will do her bit, but it was like Twitch is the big pick here, and having the Braum to answer a lot of the damage with the Unbreakable. The line damage does get reduced when it passes through that ability, and now could try and clog up the draft with a Shen. We're looking at top lane picks here for Jin Air, given what they're looking at. It will interestingly be the pick that beat them over the course of 3 games, as ADD played 3 games of Sejuani against them. So probably going to be that top lane Sejuani. We saw it get through lane against Ixu, but ultimately lose the game in game 1 of that series. Still going to be very painful, and it's the sort of situation where they will have a pushing advantage in top, and maybe that allows Songjuan to do some work over the red side jump.
I'm excited to see whether this Sedge is going to be successful, but already some change-ups, especially from the last series that we saw, and especially with how the Tigers normally build a team composition. This feels like Mickey, especially at the beginning of the game, is going to be on wave clear duty, and it's not necessarily going to be focused on him. Linderong going to have a lot of power up there towards the top side, and Sangyun, he's going to be what this team is going to be glued together with. And can he be that carry that they need?
Yeah, ROX Tigers have had to redefine their identity multiple times just in spring, with their roster wholesale changing, with Shy and Mighty Bear swapping out with Linderong and Songjuan. They seem to have settled on Shy and Mighty Bear by the end, losing a bit of that experience for a bit more youthful exuberance. And playing through the top side is a real possibility when you've drafted Jace and Olaf. The Jace will get the big push, but what can Songjuan make of it? That's the big question to me.
And so much on his shoulders as well, because we've seen Olaf either take over a game completely or be utterly useless.
Feast of famine is definitely the word for the Olaf.
Most certainly is. But ladies and gentlemen, the Tigers versus Jin Air. Let's see what happens as we get onto the Rift for game number 1. ROX Tigers definitely staying up for this one.
There's so much cosplay going on these skins in this particular game.
Oh, yeah.
Santa Braum.
Songjuan. Oh, doesn't find the Winter's Bite. Nor do they kill the ward. Oh, it's a disaster. Remake. Type it in chat, Jin Air.
I haven't even seen that Sejuani skin before.
Oh, which one? I didn't see it.
It was the, it's one of the new released ones.
Ah.
Debonair Galio.
Adorable.
There it is.
Yeah, I haven't seen this one either.
Meanwhile, Umti's traditional, just the normal stock Lee Sin skin.
Annyeonghaseyo.
You've been learning Korean,
I
Atlas.
have.
Do you have anything to say for your global fans?
No.
I guess the learning still has to be done.
Yeah, certainly does. Oh, Winter's Wrath. Avoided there by Linderung, who turns around and says, Umti, please don't hit me with your big fists.
I mean, Linderung recalling is a little bit less consequential than Umti recalling, so that's why getting damage out of the jungler affects a lot, because you either have to pop potions early, it maybe stops you from going for a full clear with 4 camps, so that's why Linderung was happy to go for trade damage, as long as Umti was the person to eat it. That's, as you see, Umti will have to use a potion early, and will just be lower on his first clear.
Yep. One thing to note is the fact that someone did actually throw down that ghost to get out of the way of that initial gank, so it wasn't completely remake worthy on the side of Jin Air, missing everything and not being able to kill the ward.
I know the OGN Legion is shocked at the low amount of Doran shields in this game.
I know! We only got up to 17 with this game.
But
24 might be impossible.
Let me give you a spoiler.
Okay.
Ixu will buy one when he goes.
Okay, thank God.
There will not be less than 3. We cannot be denied, OGN Legion.
I do like less than 3 though.
No less than 3 from me.
Too many bad jokes in the last series.
That's right.
Oh, I'll learn it back.
Treat him
don't
mean,
you worry.
etc., etc. Remember, you two revolve around me. If I don't like you, Achilles will be in here next time.
Hey, that's true. Oh man, you've never stated it like that. Now it's a battle. Oh, you Achilles. I know where you live.
Pretty close to you, actually. Speaking of where people live, Lee Sin's lived in the top side.
Yeah, he is going to flash. Just gets that kick. The Q easily lined up. That's going to be first blood going over to Umti in very quick fashion. Kuzan taking some damage here in the mid lane, but so far, Jin Air off to a great start.
You know, I'm not convinced he needed to flash. I think he was just flashing for an auto attack. It looked hilarious that it was a 200-unit flash, but you can't argue with the result. Picking up the kill after a bit of love taps at level 1. Anything to halt Linderung and allow Ixu to keep up in farm is golden for the Sejuani, who you don't need to be a mathematician to understand that the laning phase involves getting auto-attacked a million times and the turret eventually going down first. But if you delay that, if you keep the turret up longer, get some cooldown reduction, get some health, Sejuani's teamfight impact should be severe compared to Linderung's on the Jinx.
Yeah, just massive, especially if Ixu can get to a point where he can clear a minion wave. A Snowflower is going to get flayed back. In goes Songyun, as in comes Songwon as well. Snowflower, oh, there's the flash forward. Key's going to grab it. And the ambush is there. Teddy wants to turn around, try and get a kill. He's not going to be able to, and that's going to be both bottom laners on the side of the Tigers picking up a kill and answering the early aggression from Jin Air.
And such perfect timing, Atlas. It was at 4 minutes just as the Ghost came back up just seconds ago after the face check at level 1 was supposed to Ghost out. Had it at the perfect time. Great pathing from Songwon. Not something we could necessarily have said about him multiple times in the spring season, and clearly has put the off-season to good use.
Certainly has. Umti's going to be able to grab his blue buff that got down to the bottom side a little bit too late. Songyun's going to take the Lantern Express and head on home.
And there it is. You can feel better, Atlas. We're at 3 Doran's shields.
Whew. Hit 18. How many do we need? We need a 3-game series, Pub Smithy, so hopefully these teams are well matched. I have a feeling that we could possibly make it there. Jin Air very, very good at dragging games out.
Again, it's a bit of the childlike wonder of the first week where we can't know for sure these teams are evenly matched. ROX Tigers could be a contender. They finished 6th.
This is where you have to go with your gut feelings, Pub Smithy. My gut feeling saying that could be in for a long night. Lots of League of Legends to be had.
And look, completely agree with you, but it feels like gut feelings this week have actually done...
Hey, that's a good point.
Not much work, right? Both Telecom Wars teams, SKT and KT, have lost. The SKT one a little bit more expected than the KT one. Longjuice 2-0 with an entirely new lineup.
There's another flash here from Ixu. Gets that Winter's Wrath. Lands the Q on Umti. As the knockback is there. Oh, they just don't quite have the follow-up damage. They push him out once again. No teleport to get back to the lane.
I thought when the permafrost was applied, it'd be enough to get up the pickup. If you're not aware of how the permafrost works, melee champions and Sejuani apply that buff. It's a bit like the Winter's Bite, honestly, but in this case, it's only for melee champions. They got the stun, a single auto attack, and the grass proc, not enough to pick up the kill. As, honestly, Umti has spent this whole game bullying. It's kind of the receipt for Linderung's Q at level 1 has been a lot of top lane focus for Ixu and Umti.
Yeah. Sungyun as well, capitalizing on his lead. He's continuing to push forward onto Teddy. Has himself the Vamp Scepter going towards his Blade of the Ruined King as item number 1. And got himself some cheeky little boots there as well against the double daggers that Teddy was able to pick up.
It's pretty much the Screw You Caitlyn build of Dawn Shield and a Vamp Scepter.
Yeah. I like that. Screw You Caitlyn build.
Well, I mean, Caitlyn's an obnoxious laner. No nerfs for Caitlyn in patch 7.10. It will take 7.11 for the rest of the suite of nerfs to come through to try to lock down her
for
power
any
level.
of your convenience store-based needs.
7.11 is going to be a fun patch to say.
Oh, yeah.
I know you're already readying your 7-Eleven jokes.
I just think about Slurpees way too much.
No
Is that a
Slurpees
thing?
in Korea.
Yeah, it's not a thing here in Korea, and I don't know whether it's a thing globally as well. I know it's definitely a thing in Australia, as there's the Glacial Prison. Ixu's looking to lock down Linderung. The heroic entry is there as Kuzan's going to try and join, and he manages to get the taunt. That's going to be that, and the mid laner capitalizes on Linderung, who is honestly feeling a bit like food this game.
Yep, you're saying it has been a bit like free food. It's been very heavily targeted. Kuzan had to use more than he would have liked. Having to flash after missing both of his abilities is not ideal. But not a lot of penalty that an Orianna can inflict. Was actually behind in CS at the start of all of this, so really has only been able to catch up in CS during the exit from Kuzan.
Yeah. Quite disappointing, and grabs himself a couple of stacks with his Dark Seal. Stays ahead in farm. Kuzan having a very good time. Jinner actually starting things off very nicely despite that double kill on the bottom side of the map. ROX, more of an investment going down there for that first gank. Making sure that Sungyun is going to be in the best possible position moving into the mid and late game on this Twitch.
The mid game is going to be really, really powerful for Jin Air. The base values and base damage. Just hold on to that point for a moment.
Yeah, he wants to find this kick, as there it is! In comes Ixu! The Arctic Assault is named so correctly. Permafrost there! That looked so beautiful out of Jin Air.
And struggles through the course of spring. Will also bookend some really nice performances on Lee Sin at the start and end of the season in the promotion tournament. Poetry in motion from him, but you pop a ghost and maybe the Ragnarok can have the same impact.
Well, we'll see. Nice double play there out of key. As Ingo Sungyun with the ultimate, they pick up the first one. Snowflower will be a difficult kill to gather underneath this turret, and they decide not to go for it.
Still get a 1 kill, so 1 for 1 across the board. Mid-game here for Jin Air. If they keep things on this particular speed, the base values and tankiness of Sejuani and Galio will mean that team fights will be very, very manageable. Now, we had this sort of scenario before, and the team with the Galio and super tanky lineup still did fine. Speaking of still doing things, we got the Lee Sin up top again.
Yeah, avoids the Glacial Prison this time, but the Permafrost is just too much.
We're just bullying at this point.
Yeah, it feels too easy on the side of Jinek, just killing Linderung. But he's got to be worth about as much as a Siege minion right now.
Yeah, it's starting to get there. 0-4-0 didn't even get an assist at any point, so starting to whittle down in gold. What's the right play to make? Not necessarily for the kill, but because they wanted to answer the turret that was going down in the bottom lane. So getting the structure here, I think, is the biggest story, like you say, when the gold from the champion is not doing much. But let's return to a matchup that was super Sejuani disadvantage. You know, it was a Jace favored lane. He's now 30 CS behind, and even more crucially, 2 levels behind the Sejuani. So for a champion that can get outscaled, which is something you could always really point towards as Jace, he's whether he's going to scale at all is kind of in question.
Yeah. Well, at least now he could look to try and freeze a wave, but certainly not on that one. That one's shoving straight back towards the turret.
You just know that so many people, in Korea especially, but globally watching this world, is going to go into solo queue, play the Sejuani, and dream of the level of camp that Umti has given Ixu this game.
Yeah.
Why can't I be 30 CS ahead of a Jace?
This is surely easy. Wait, how did Ixu do it and he's only got assists? Mickey is actually taking some damage. He's fine. Ace in the hole comes in. No one going to chase him out, and that's going to be an easy Ocean Drake pickup for Jin Air. Despite the fact that the bottom side of the map is where Tigers have all of their power, it's invested in a Twitch who's just not at that point just yet. He can capitalize. Troplast not quite getting what they want as Umti just testing the waters. Jumping over onto this Olaf.
Yeah, we're pre-1 item, so surprising that Jin Air can group so strongly right now, but it's mostly because they're not afraid of Linderong whatsoever. Base values and tankiness of Ixu and Kuzan is through the roof. Passive on the Sejuani and just the spell shield and general stats of a Galio, the reduced damage of the W passive. So Jin Air feeling strong, and something like a Rift Herald would be an ideal objective, but teams are not giving up free Rift Heralds. It's not spring meta, this is the summer meta. A Rift Herald's a big objective to compete for.
Oh, Umpty wants to try and get back in here to steal this one away if he can. We may actually have a team fight breaking out at just 12 minutes into this game. The ambush needs to be there by Songyun if he wants to start this one up. He does have the spray and pray. Is massive damage coming down. Shockwave does absolutely nothing though, and Ixu's able to pick up a kill already. Songyun got at least one, but Linderong, he's going to get finished off. Jin Air are going to win. It's a 2-1. No one's going to be able to take the Rift Herald here. That's much closer than I was expecting, to be honest, though, Papa Smithy.
Yeah, you can't afford to miss the Shockwave here if you're in this scenario where you're against these tanky members whose damage is still a bit shaky even this early in the game. The CC was just as important as the damage it put out, but Mickey missing the Orianna ult meant that, as you say, it felt like it would be more one-sided. We're going to get a replay. Flash Q there from the Orianna, but basically was pressured instantly, so couldn't ult at that point, and by the time she ulted, the ball was woefully out of position. Then it was just tanks and carries running in melee range of a Jace, who still does absolutely no damage, so went down pretty easily.
Unfortunately got an assist as well, Papa Smithy, resetting some of that that gold total. Looks like Linderong's actually going for a Blade of the Ruin King on Jace. New.
That was the build we saw come through from Ixu as Blade the Ruin King into the Death Stance was the build he went for.
Oh, I love that.
Very much a split pushing build. He's against Sejuani and Galio, so we'll get a lot of value out of the current health. Agreed. Compared to the previous patches, you think, okay, where's the lethality? But that certainly was super targeted over many, many patches. So Blade the Ruin King is kind of the new school build and very much fits the split pushing. And with the extra AD on the item over attack speed, does help out the Jace, whether it's the attack speed and attack damage, or quite simply the fact that attack damage scales so well with the hyperdrive when you're going for the turret kills.
Yeah. As well as Death Stance also staggering that damage a little bit more now as well, has just overall been buffed, on top of the fact that it's now a little bit cheaper at the same time. Interestingly enough, the first pickup from Kuzan is the Adaptive Helm.
It's become a pretty common item, surprisingly, though I guess Linderong has to die again.
Yeah, we barely even need to commentate this. I feel like it's almost rude to draw attention.
I did say, I guess Linderong has to die again.
Yeah.
He doesn't look so happy, Atlas. Could you please give some color commentary on why he might be sad?
Well, you see, he's died 6 times in the first 50 minutes of the game, Papa Smithy, and generally, that makes you not feel so good.
Now, he's going to be, the objective trade is more interesting here, although whether it's a trade or not is actually up for debate. Here's the teleport.
Yeah, teleport's coming in. Kuzan's trying to make his way over to this Rift Herald as well, as the Justice Punch coming down, some Winds of War being thrown in. That Glacial Prison not going to be imprisoning anyone, as finally a Shockwave is going to hit, but it's only onto 2 pretty tanky members of Jin Air. And Umpty, the split-pushing Lee Sin, doing work on the bottom side, and Jin Air are also going to be able to get this Rift Herald that they've been fighting on for a long time.
They're able to just harass out. Remember, you said it, the Lee Sin's in the bot lane. They have no smite for it, but they know for a fact that there's no way Olaf will be coming back in. So Jin Air win everything. They get the kill, they get the turret, they even get damage on the inner turret, and they pick up the Rift Herald as well. Jin Air Green Wings really piling on the advantages early in this game off the back of the fact that if you look at the gold values, Jace has 100 gold more than Twitch.
Oh God.
That's bad.
That is, look, as a play-by-play, I even knew that was bad. We've got like a 2.1 thousand gold lead for Ixu on the top side of the map on a Sejuani ages old past, you know, has always been one of these champions when she's in a lane that it's normally let's get through the early parts of the game, get ourselves to a point where we can throw out our Glacial Prison and really mess up a team fight for the opposition.
I mean, I kind of contest what you're saying here, Atlas. I know that's not normally the way to go, but she
no,
wasn't in a lane, right? She was always a jungler.
I'm talking about those
sure.
few times.
But the reason why I
mentioned
mentioned is that, you know, there was some support, Sejuani, but she didn't have wave clear before. Getting access to the new W means she has wave clear. But I think the bigger point that you're getting to is that Sejuani's never really had the gold income to be the scary frontliner she was always billed to be. You saw Sejuani on release and you're like, ranged AoE, Amumu ultimate, dash, she's going to shape the meta. But it never happened because on a budget, Sejuani could never be super powerful. And the jungle budget was not the greatest one for her. She didn't have the resist. She was just had a pretty good base health value, but had no extra resist. And her new passive, giving her free armor and magic resist, means that you build a bit of health, you get free resist. In this case, you build health and resist that are only really accessible with lane CS. And now you're just so much more tanky than the past, and still Sejuani.
I'll never get used to that.
Dash.
He does a bunch of damage.
You're going to pick up a single turret, though. So not the most maximum, but it's a single turret while two people are killing Infernal Drake. And I guess that's where the bigger value is that ROX had to react to mid, and that meant that no one was going to be competing for the Infernal Drake.
Yeah, Sungyun up here towards the top side isn't able to get anything done to this outer turret. And yes, I had to probably caveat my point about Sejuani because I was thinking mainly of mid Sejuani that Skara used to play about 3 years ago.
In solo queue.
In solo queue, exactly. So, look.
I just can't have the viewers hearing the sentence of, when we saw Sejuani in a solo lane. I'm like, well, we didn't see that, Atlas. That didn't happen.
I got a little bit too excited because I played a heck of a lot of solo lanes.
But I mean, your point stands. It's that we never saw old Sejuani with gold because she didn't have any wave clear. If she wanted to wave clear, she was queuing into a minion wave, doing melee range wave clear, and getting what, auto attack to death, all end. That was not something that could happen. And in the jungle, she was so frail for a champion that looks like she'll be very tanky, just with, you know, riding a big boar and being so aggressive. She never had the gold to be as intimidating. Now with the passive, now with the W allowing safe wave pushing from relative range, she has the flexibility and the access to gold. You just wouldn't see an 18-minute Frozen Heart, Spectre's Cowl, Ninja Tabi, Sejuani in previous metas, but if you get her through laning phase, which was with, admittedly, one hell of a camp. This was like the most camp. I think you have to bring in Shy just because how could you not be tilted if you're Linderon?
Well, exactly.
That we get what is now a super-powered Sejuani, and given that Ixu had to deal with Sejuani 3 games in a row, he knew what to expect.
Well, that was nice. Linderon actually helping Songwon lock down his red buff. Humpty unable to cast the Sonic Wave Resonating Strike combo quite quickly enough.
Are you in for an interesting stat?
Oh, I'm in for
Legion will like this.
Get me in there.
Mickey has played 218 games in Korea. He, of course, jumped over to WE Academy and then came back in 2015 summer season. This is his first ever game on Orianna.
Really?
First.
Oh my god, no wonder he missed a shockwave.
This is something new. I mean, he's never been a control mage player. He had a couple.
Not.
He was a decent Azir.
And I knew it was weird, but I just thought that there would have been a couple of cheeky ones in there, you know?
He'd never shown that Orianna before. You know, he played, as I said, Azir at IEM, didn't look great, but had some good games in Korea. He can certainly play the Aries, the pseudo-wave clear champions, but his first ever competitive game of Orianna, which just sounds like madness.
Yeah. Arctic Assault is going to find Mickey. He does get himself onto the lantern and away to safety, so no perma for us to stop him from that one. Going to be safe for now. That big angry ball lady. Bristle and Sejuani roaming the rift to try and take people down.
And doesn't have much cares. You know, already has a second level of the passives, walking around with a lot of resists and the slow reduction or slow immunity that you get on the Sejuani, and 2 levels up still on Jace, who wishes that it was a different game where he was just freely auto-attacking the Sejuani.
Yep. That Fury of the North passive, the sort of pseudo-Malzahar is what I like to call it. Giving you a heck of a lot of resistances. And how do you feel about the Frozen Heart? Just because she does scale a bit with max health and stuff like that, I would have liked to see sort of a health item to start things off. Well, Frozen Heart, fantastic against Twitch, of course.
Twitch, Olaf gets a lot of attack speed when he's low. Jace is going play the Ruin King.
Jace, yeah.
I agree that a bit of health is there, but health is kind of hard to get in this meta. You know, Iceborne Gauntlet
everything being nerfed a little bit.
Iceborne Gauntlet and Frozen Heart are still basically at full value, but all the other health items are kind of gone. So Spectre's Cowl, a decent amount of health, and when you're 2 levels ahead, 3 levels ahead now, the base health is going just fine.
See what he goes for next.
It is something different. If you remember, when ADD played it, he was rushing the Righteous Glory every game, which is a health item. And you can understand the theory of free resists.
Oh, good flash from Mickey. Avoids that Glacial Prison.
How much of a stall game can ROX do with this Orianna? They still do have late game insurance in some ways. 1 CS up, 2-0-2 is the Twitch. Now, hasn't been able to buy the items he needs to puncture through Sejuani and the Galio.
Demonstrates the state of the game, though, doesn't it, Papa Smithy? Being forced to get that last Whisper before you complete a second item.
I mean, he needs to do damage to super tanks, so
yeah.
It's going to take a while.
Another Adaptive Helm coming in from Ixu. Seems to be the flavor of Jin Air.
I think Adaptive Helm is perhaps being overbuilt in Korea. It's really interesting because Spirit Visage is actually buffed overall. It still has the most magic resist and it offers a lot more health than Adaptive Helm. Against Dots, Adaptive Helm is very strong. So Adaptive Helm versus Rumble, super amount of sense there as the extra Flame Spitter takes against Cassiopeia and other very short cooldown abilities. Command Attack, that one makes sense on the side of ROX Tigers, but to get two of them in this scenario is a bit of a surprise. I mean, the only thing I think that hasn't been discussed of Adaptive Helm is it gives magic resist, which everyone knows reduces magic damage. The reason why I'm saying that, or verbally saying that, is that 15% reduction on top of already getting reduction is actually pretty considerable because you get diminishing returns with every extra magic resist purchase. So
yeah,
it's actually a lot. It sounds low, like, oh, 15% whatever, but it's 15% on the top of already being around the peak amount of efficiency magic resist. So you're taking very little magic damage.
Oh, this is another Glacial Prison flying through. Heroic entry from Kuzan just on top of Ixu to claim this inner turret on the bottom side of the map. But I do love what you were saying as far as like the maths class on diminishing returns, because the more different stats you can have, the better it actually works. So offering a different metric is always a good idea.
I mean, flat reductions that aren't reduced by diminishing returns are very attractive. So against the champions where it's very obviously strong, like Rumble and Cassiopeia, great purchase. In this scenario, that's the one where I'm like, jury's kind of out on how much value you're really getting.
Yeah. For example, you know, there gets to a point where you build too much magic resist and then what you need is health, because that's going to be the more worthwhile statistic. Things like that. But in this case, we've got another one we can add to it. I would have actually liked to see something like the Abyssal Scepter, new and improved, or new and changed Abyssal Scepter, just because Sejuani does do a lot of magic damage, and with the fact that she scales off health, means that it's pretty free. Yeah,
also, one of them picking it up. Galio obviously loves Abyssal Scepter.
And that's the only magic damage that they have, coming from very tanky champions that aren't necessarily going to be doing a lot of damage, meaning that ROX can feel free to build a fair bit of armor, get away from this one.
And it fits this scenario the best, because the 10% extra magic damage is only really relevant when you have follow-up magic damage, and they're gonna, you know, Galio and Sejuani are not dying quickly. They're gonna be around applying that aura, both of them getting value out of it. So it feels like a high-value Abyssal Scepter scenario, but double Adaptive Helm. I'd love to see an interview ask about specifically Adaptive Helm over the other options. The Spirit Visage still strong, and the other items looking opportunistic. As speaking of opportunistic,
oh god, Kuzan just doesn't take damage. The Q is going to land as Umti just decides not to take it. Kuzan says, well, I think someone attacked me, but I barely noticed.
Still getting there. Only a completed Zeal item, the Hurricane and the Last Whisper. 2 items away from actually not tickling the likes of Kuzan and Ixu.
Yep. I like that he tested the waters, though.
Genera looking for this turret around top lane. Rotating around the Jace has been their game plan most of the game so far, but he's, you know, really not going to be doing much so far defensively on the bot side of the map. They are now finally moving their vision around Baron side.
Well, Ixu, you can see just clearing out some of these minions before Kuzan turns up. Justice Lee punching his way in. Songwon has to throw down that Ragnarok. They're looking for the kill, but they're not going to be able to get it. Dissonance going to be enough to create enough distance.
But does this mean they can actually turn to Baron? This should be the window. They have great turn. Anyone face checks. They have the Sejuani ultimate, the Braum ultimate, so many different ults. So perfect time to go for a Baron. And Songwon, he's going to be hightailing it back.
Yeah, he was back in base. The teleport is coming in from Linderung. He wants to try and get something done here. They can soften them up a little bit, but look at how tanky these players are from Jin Air.
Songwon's still too far away.
Oh, Mickey wants to try and get a shockwave in there. It is available once again, but Umti locks down the Baron. Songwon like you mentioned, just not there in time. And look, ROX just say, well, it's not worth fighting over this because they don't even think they can win.
Still very ordered play from Jin Air. They chunked at the one person that really gives up any hope for Baron control. And while they have attack speed and AD, they'll do some decent damage as out of turret. Just about take it. Certainly not a worthwhile trade.
Oh, well, Glacial Prison is going to completely miss
Kuzan?
as Kuzan makes his way in. There's the taunt onto two members. Shockwave into the backline. Teddy takes a lot of damage, but it's not enough. Heroic entrance right on top of himself just to make things worse, says Kuzan. That is going to be the double kill coming out for Teddy. 4 dead on the side of the ROX Tigers, and Jin Air Green Wings. Some of the best play that we've seen from this team.
Yeah, it was really good team fighting from them. They're still at that point where the damage from Twitch can be largely ignored because they have such a tanky front line, and the damage from Jin Air cannot be ignored. There is only damage on the side of ROX, no tankiness. Those are not the builds they're going for. The Orianna, first time competitive for Mickey, is not working. The Jace certainly has been completely disseminated. And Jin Air feel like they're just a couple of seconds away from icing down game 1. We'll see the replay here. Ult misses. We've seen a lot of the ult missing, but a lot of the power was taken out of ultimate from the Sejuani compared to the old ult. And they sit in an ultimate, they sit in Twitch, but the damage values are not there. The heroic entrance doing enough damage reduction. If you think about it, the heroic entrance and also the Braum Unbreakable, if you're getting the benefit of both of those, you're not taking much damage in general.
Yeah, damn right.
With all that percentage reduction. And Sungyun needs time that Jin Air is not interested in giving him to be the threat to make the Tigers comp work.
And I really like that we had that conversation on diminishing returns there as well, because that's so many different stats reducing damage.
And not often will you have complete overlap because the damage reduction from the Galio is only on himself and the person that he's ulting onto, and then it depends on the Braum positioning, but stats can interact in really beneficial ways that you don't necessarily think of because you just look at numbers and think 15's not very big. 15 can be very massive, and Galio, we saw at MSI, Galio never takes much damage.
That's why he's got 9 stacks on that Dark Seal. 2-0-5 now Kuzan from that mid lane, but 5-0-1. Omti really has been the talking point for Jin Air. Some of that exceptional play with Ixu on the top side of the map where they were just treating Linderung like a ragdoll. Looked very, very good, and now they're collapsing here towards this bottom side, wanting to grab their second inhibitor. Here at close to 30 minutes into this game. It's feeling like ROX circling the drain just a little bit, and Jin Air just not looking like the team that we saw in spring. They're looking controlled. They're looking very good, honestly.
I mean, in general, if you think about it, it's pretty much been promotion tournament Jin Air through both their series, which is a big improvement. Looking to end the game. Haven't used any of their initiation CC yet, but you feel it's coming.
Yeah, and you feel as well like Kuzan doesn't really mind about these Nexus turrets. Normally they do hurt at about 30 minutes into the game. Kuzan's just looking pretty comfortable. Sungyun gets chunked. I think in ambush as well. Just unfortunate placement there. This hook is going to land onto Ixu, and he may actually die. Does fall down very, very quickly. Songwon close to dead, but doesn't fall. And now we've got a 5 versus 4 situation. Jin Air have to back away. ROX buy themselves some time. Yeah,
Jin Air weren't good at DPSing down one Nexus turret. They kind of did a little bit to both, which will regen slightly. And didn't really focus fire. So in the end, a single shockwave onto Sejuani and 5 members single target bursting him down meant that Ixu went down, but they'll just recall, go back, pick up an Ocean Drake to get another stack for the Elder Dragon and come back. So not a massive or conclusive victory for ROX Tigers, but a slight misstep for Jin Air.
Yeah, just slowing things down just a little bit. Not going to be that sub 30-minute victory, and if it was, it just wouldn't feel like a Jin Air game anymore, Papa Smithy. So I actually quite like it, keeping things on brand.
Everyone's happy the game is keeping going, except for Linderung, who just is in his own personal hell.
Yes, that's true. Having an awful time. Oh, they were looking for it.
The
The
mind
Justice
game.
Punch. Yeah. Trying to stop that one from happening. As good a time as any to throw that one out. It's just going to get lucky or not.
Linderung's having a gay old time, killing off super minions. About always good for.
Mm-hmm.
Play the Rune King.
Yeah.
Value.
Nice. Down 2,000 gold.
Which, you know, could have been more.
That's true. He's ahead in farm.
Unfortunately, Jace is down 2,000 gold at 30 minutes, does exactly nothing.
Yeah. Especially when you've got the Knight's Vow being picked up by Ixu. He's got a Negatron Cloak just for good measure. Actually, no, he sold that. Got a Warden's Mount. I swear there was a Negatron Cloak sitting there in his inventory at some point.
For that completion, they have 2 inhibitors down.
Last one now being sieged upon. Traps underneath this turret as well. Teddy actually opting in for the static shift for some extra wave clear.
Does more damage to champions with the latest turn.
Yeah.
And it's better than rapid fire cannon when it comes to that harassment.
But also, I mean, they don't have a lot of reliable wave clear coming out from anywhere else. So if they want to clear these minion waves, it's going to be on Teddy. As Mickey, yeah, takes a lot of damage regardless of that.
Waiting for the minion waves to crash here. No longer can they just send Jace bot lane for extended times. He'll move for now. But with no items really completed, he's going to take his time working through that minion wave, and Kuzan can tank up for a while.
Yeah, of course, remember, less damage with no minions under here as Ixu takes half of his health bar, basically for free after that hook flay.
Well, that's what happens when you have melee solo laners. Take a while when there's no minion wave.
A little unbreakable, denying a lot of Sungyun's damage, but still, slowly but surely, this turret is falling down on the top side.
Just to be clear, this playstyle does not play into the strengths of Jin Air's comp. They are going for the tutorial victory when, once the inhibitor respawns, looking for a fight is certainly a lot more incentivized.
Oh yeah.
They only have Caitlyn as a ranged auto attacker. The only one, which you very infrequently see. It's normally 2 to 4 ranged auto attackers, but with only one, they toil away.
Well, there's a big teleport flank here from Ixu. They're trying to catch out ROX, and I think he may have just done it. Mickey in a poor position. Permafrost is going to be there, but he holds onto the ultimate. Understanding that that Baron's going to be up in 6 seconds. Umti jumps his way in, safeguards out, just trying to disrupt this aggression onto Ixu. Finally, the ultimate goes down because he feels enough pressure. Winds of War are there to stop Songwon from getting in amongst any more of this fight as Jin Air now wanting to turn this one around. There's a massive flash ult from Snowflower as Linderung in a good spot. Hook comes in. The Sejuani. No, it's the Galio, just gets destroyed. Knew it was one of the beefy frontliners, but I didn't know that he'd be taking that much damage, and all of a sudden, Sungyun is doing damage.
You know, Jin Air's formation has really let them down. If you watch that fight, it was about 30 seconds in duration, and there were no auto attacks for about 28 of them from Teddy. He was zoned from the fight. He wasn't grouped with the tanks, and thus he wasn't putting out the damage that is desperately needed. Teddy has been the crown jewel of Jin Air ever since his debut, and in this comp, when they are very low damage in the other 4 members, they need to pull back if Teddy's not going to be committing to a fight. He wasn't in position, the tanks were too far up, and the end result is once again going back to the drawing board. They're still insanely far ahead, but you misplay another 2-3 fights, the death timers get long enough. Surprises could still happen.
And the tools are there for ROX as well to try and get themselves into this. Teddy over the wall looking to try and get damage down on this Baron. Everyone's there ready to tank that one up, and no one on the Tigers is going to be able to help out.
Yeah, there's nothing they can do. All they can do is push out their waves. They haven't been this far at their base in, what, 10 minutes?
Yep.
They've been bunkered up since very early in the game, so no mistakes there. Nothing ROX could have done.
Some full team agoraphobia happening on the side of the ROX Tigers at this point of the game.
ROX's comp works best when they're forcing Jin Air to siege, but then you're like, okay, well, let's wait for them to siege, but then they get Baron buff, and suddenly things like wave clear and the melee champions mean a bit less. There's very obvious places to fight as well with 2 inhibitors down, so kind of a lose-lose there for ROX Tigers. They want to close this game, but Sungyun's in stealth, so he's really the only person that can decide this game positively for ROX.
Well, first inhibitor is going to fall once again in the mid lane. Just looking to grab this bot lane one as well. Decent flank positioning from Songwon. But could be difficult. He's already down so incredibly low. Ragnarok's in there. Good 3-man shockwave. Kuzan avoids that damage though, and he's massive in the front line. Redemption just heals them all what feels like back to full. And the Ocean Drake's going to do the rest of that. ROX have to go back to the fountain, get their health bars back. Songwon at least survives.
There's no ability power values that can do damage to Sejuani and Galio at this point in the game when you're 7,000 gold behind, even with a death cap and a blasting one on top with the Void Staff tickling the Galio and Sejuani. So they get the 2 inhibitors, they get out, and maybe even pick up the Elder Dragon to come up with 4-stack Elder Dragon and just right-click this game over.
Yes, well, feel like that could certainly be a thing as Linderung is Too busy dealing with super creep still towards the bottom lane. I feel like that has been his job for this entirety of the series. And thankfully when you're this tanky, I mean, you don't take any damage from the Elder Dragon whatsoever.
I mean, who really takes damage on Jin Air Green Wings?
Yeah.
If you think about it, they have Knight's Vow, Galio Ultimate. If you try and jump on Caitlyn, you're going to have to deal with Unbreakable, Knight's Vow, Galio Ultimate damage reduction. We're getting to insane levels. You don't even need
double Locket of the Iron Solari on the other two that are like working double duty on them two.
And
like,
there may be a redemption if it's necessary.
Yeah, throw that down.
And Teddy could buy a Guardian Angel later, just to add insult to injury. Smartly, though, not in a rush to build Guardian Angel. He's feeling safe.
He just wants a longsword. You know, sometimes you got to remember your roots. It's like whenever I play an RPG, I need to carry my first sword around with me the whole time.
Really?
Just to remind me from where I came, you know? That's important. Takes up inventory space. It's frustrating. I think it's good.
How many bottles of Vegemite did you bring in your luggage to Korea?
Actually, none.
Oh.
I was given a lot as going away presents, and I sort of hated it so much at that point. The joke wasn't funny, and then I forgot to pack them.
Well, they want to end this game, Jin Air. They've toiled for a few minutes, but this should be it.
Yeah, Super Minions pushing forward. First Nexus turret is going to fall down. This has to be the fight from ROX. They have to try and get something from this one. Songyun in a decent position, wants to try and get that ambush kill down, but it's just not really finding it. That's a fantastic ultimate. Does get the QSS and the flash out of Songyun. Ixu's going down low, but look at this. The Caitlyn free hitting onto the Nexus if he wants to on the side of Teddy. They've traded 1-for-1 so far, but Teddy just needs to shoot this dang Nexus if he wants to win this game. It's a double kill from Songyun, but look at that. Finally they turn around, and it is going to be the win for Jin Air Green Wings.
The air of inevitability about the win was sealed on the 5th death for the Jace. Ended up being 7, I believe, finally 8 as the last fight completed. When Jace is that far behind, you know, it felt like 2,000 gold didn't tell the full story at 30 minutes because Jace from behind historically has done not much. Jace from even a little bit ahead does start to lose a bit of oomph in the late game, but this Jace sadly was toiling at killing super minions. So that you know that Jace was never going to be an impact. They tried to set up something, but Ixu had been on the other side of the matchup. The Sejuani that seems to be a Jin Air or MVP only pick comes up strong in this particular game. And, well, one team built around Twitch, one team built around Songyun, the other team was 4 tanks, and good old, reliable Teddy. Teddy did his job.
Teddy certainly did his job, but I feel like the story is Umti just sitting up there towards the top side of the map. He bought himself a pop tent, set it up, and killed a Jace over and over again. Yes, you can talk about Linderung having a horrific scoreline, but it was orchestrated by Jin Air, and it was actually almost opted into on the side of ROX because they knew that they could then capitalize on the bottom side of the map, sort of sharing where the pressure goes. Just didn't seem to work.
I mean, people talk about camps being set up. This wasn't a covert camp. The camp was right in front of the Jace. And the target there is either to counter gank in the top lane or make things happen elsewhere. Neither thing really happened, and the end result was a useless Jace.
Yeah, it was a little bit disappointing, but still, they were able to hold on for quite some time on the side of the ROX Tigers. We'll see whether they can make a better start in game number 2. We are going to go to a short break. When we get back, game 2 between ROX Tigers and Jin Air.